Chicago City Treasurer presents the Financial Empowerment Summit, featuring powerful financial advice from multimillionaire stars and experts. This is the Shark and the Apprentice Fireside Chat.
All right, we are about to begin. It is show time. So let me tell you, as Chicago City Treasurer, I have always believed that when you have a goal, you should find someone who has already achieved it and ask them how they did it. So there is no sense, I believe, in reinventing the wheel when there are examples of how to grow wealth and generous people that we can learn from. And that's why we are here today. Our weekend, Building Wealth Today for Tomorrow. We are calling this session The Shark and the Apprentice. We are absolutely thrilled to be joined by Daymond John of ABC Shark Tank and Chicago's own Bill Rancic, who became known to many from his appearance on The First Apprentice and The Winner. Both of these gentlemen have been generous enough to give us their time today. And when they come on the stage, we want to bring the energy. Are you all with me? Now, I knew that in order to make this panel really rock, we had to have a woman that can set this panel off. So we have the beautiful, the Emmy Award-winning host, Val Warner of Windy City Live. That's how you bring it. That will be moderating our panel on today. So let's bring Val up and let's give them energy as they come.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Let's give a big old round of applause for Melissa Conyears-Ervin for putting this together. Building wealth today for tomorrow and for baby girl, because she's doing it for baby girl, but for all of us. Melissa, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction and for having me. Look, let me get right here. We don't want to accidentally fall off this stage. How y'all feeling today? Everybody good? Have you learned something yesterday and today? Are you ready to build that wealth for today and tomorrow? All right. Well, this is going to be a fun conversation. As Melissa just said, the shark and the apprentice. And I am Val Warner, she just said, from ABC 7, and it is my pleasure to be here to facilitate this conversation. I'm looking to learn something too, because that's what this is all about. So without further ado, I'm going to take a seat and I am going to introduce our first panelist. As a matter of fact, I'm going to let this reel tell you who he is.
After bursting onto the scene as NBC's first apprentice, Bill Rancic has been sharing his life experiences and business acumen with tens of thousands of leaders, businesses, and organizations on a variety of important topics. His expertise ranges from why some companies thrive in chaos and others don't, to the leadership behaviors needed in a world beset by turbulence, uncertainty, and dramatic change. Bill has inspired millions of people around the globe to work toward reaching their full potential, both in business and their personal lives. He is currently co-owner of the RPM Restaurant Group and Juliana Prosecco, with his wife, entertainment reporter Juliana Rancic. Please welcome entrepreneur, award-winning author, motivational speaker, and your apartmentalized MC, Bill Rancic.
Thank you.
Come on, y'all, let's give it up for Bill Rancic.
Thank you. Hey, guys. How are you?
Hi, Bill.
Good. Where do you want me?
You know what? I was just having that conversation. Okay. How about you want to do this side or this side?
I'll go this side.
Okay,
That's
there
great.
we go.
All right. How's everyone doing? I mean, is this not the greatest city in the world?
You better know it, and we already know it, and we're going to have a great conversation.
I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be with you, Val. We haven't seen each other in a couple of years. She's an amazing fixture on Chicago television.
Oh, thank you,
So
Bill.
I'm really excited, and I'm so excited to be with Daymond John. I'm a huge fan. My son and I watch the Shark Tank with him all the time, and I got to meet him backstage, and I got to tell you, Even nicer than I thought. What a real gentleman.
Is
Great
this your
guy.
first time meeting him?
First time meeting him, and really just couldn't be
Wow.
more thrilled with meeting him. So we got a lot to look forward to today.
And as a matter of fact, he just almost introduced our second guest today. Let's take a look at this reel. No, that's okay.
I've been an entrepreneur since the day I was born.
Without further ado, here he is, the People's Shark, Daymond John.
Daymond John, the founder and CEO of For Us By Us, FUBU, and a panelist on Shark Tank, and the author of 3 best-selling books.
An entrepreneur is somebody who thinks outside the box, and when everybody else says no, they say yes. Came from the hood. I can't design. I'm dyslexic. Got left back in 7th grade. All that didn't stop me.
America's not about what can be done for us. It's about what can be done by us.
When you start hearing the president talk about FUBU, Mom, I made it.
Every week, over 6 million people tune in to see Daymond John and his fellow sharks fight it out on Shark Tank.
I'll go 42. Let's do it right now.
Say yes, don't hesitate.
I'll do 42.
The biggest investment is to invest in people.
We have an idea. We know you are the man to come to.
For me, I've always dreamed big. And so I called up my business partner, Daymond John from Shark Tank.
I love him so much.
I love it.
He's so encouraging, and he sees that I could do this.
It's all about bringing other people up the ladder, the same way that I was brought up the ladder.
I will guarantee to mentor you, but I will not give you the money at this time.
John from Shark Tank out with a new book called Rise and Grind, Outperform, Outwork, and Out-Hustle Your Way to a more successful and rewarding life.
You have to start today and do what you love. You're going to fail, but you're going to learn from that, and you're going to grow.
We've got a shark here named Daymond John.
A presidential ambassador for global entrepreneurship.
Thanks for what you're doing.
My quest right now is to change people's lives, have fun at the same time, and challenge people.
You've just given back to the community in so many great ways. A real visionary.
Daymond John!
The king of branding. He is the leader, the pioneer. I love it. The American dream stole off. That's what it's about. It's about leaving with a legacy.
Thank you.
All right, y'all, give it up for the shark, Daymond John. Come on, Chicago. Let's give him that good old Chicago Midwest welcome.
Hello.
Hey, Daymond, want to come on this side over there?
Here?
Yeah.
All right. What's up, Bill? Excuse me. Sorry.
Of course. So good to have you.
All right.
All right. Do you want one on it? Okay, the treasurer says she wants one on each side. Okay. Sorry. Can you come back on this side? So we're going to do a little.
What do you want me, right here?
Yes. Well, there we go. All right, y'all. Are y'all excited? We got the shark and the apprentice. Daymond, we got to say something. Bill and I were just marveling at your reel. Your sizzle reel that brought you out here.
Yeah,
and we all have questions. Who did it? Because we wanted to, because that was fantastic. Oh, it was amazing.
I can pass on the young lady that her company who did that reel for me. Yeah. Sure.
Oh, yeah, she's fantastic. So, listen, we're going to have this amazing conversation and talk with both of you. And I want to start with you, Daymond, about, of course, we all know you from the Shark Tank and, you know, all of that. But where did you get your start? I read that you got your first job at 10 years old making $2 an hour. Is that true?
That is, yeah. I was handing out flyers for a mall, and I was getting paid $2.35 per hour in the middle of winter. My father left when I was 10, and my mother was raising me by herself. I had no other siblings.
Okay.
And I didn't want to see my mother work that hard. She had to work like 3 jobs with the same amount of food on the table when she was working 1.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes during the winter we wouldn't have, you know, gas or electricity for about a week until we all know, you know, many of us know what that's like.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were on welfare for a little while, and my mother's a very proud woman, and she never, I didn't want to see her work like that. But against her will, I went and got a job handing out flyers.
Oh, she didn't want you to work?
She didn't want me to work, no. But I was going to do something, and she figured that, you know, and then my uncle worked at the mall, and he said, I'll watch over him. And that's how that happened.
Right. But did you always have that entrepreneurial spirit? Or was it born out of your circumstances?
No, I did. And I think we all have entrepreneurial, that spirit in us. It's just we hear no too often, or other people tell us it can't be done. I've never heard of that before. You're going to embarrass yourself. You're going to embarrass us. And they put limitations on us. But as a kid, tell me, there's no kid out there who says, no, I can't do it. They believe they can do it, right? It's just some of us guide them the wrong way and say, you cannot do it because maybe we don't have the vision, or maybe we're trying to protect them.
Right. Bill, when did you get your first job?
Well, I got my first job at 10 years old, believe it or not. Very similar story. Wow. It was funny. My mom and dad were going out of town for the weekend, and they sent me to my grandmother's house. And my grandmother lived by Midway Airport on the south side.
I was going to say, from Chicago,
yeah,
right?
61st and Pulaski. So I went there for the weekend. And I woke up Saturday morning, and lo and behold, my grandmother was in the kitchen in her little bungalow making breakfast. And I was probably like Daymond. I was really inquisitive. How does this work? What goes here? Why are you doing that? So I started inundating my grandmother with all these questions. And she said, well, I'm going to teach you how to make pancakes. And I spent all day in my grandmother's kitchen making pancakes. And then I woke up Sunday morning, and I raced into my grandmother's kitchen. And the first thing I did was I picked up her old rotary telephone. And I called all the old ladies who lived on her block, and I invited them to come over for a pancake breakfast.
No way.
Well, these women
loved it. One day after learning?
Yeah, they loved it. They thought it was the neatest thing they'd ever seen. So then they left after breakfast, and I started clearing the plates away from the table, and I noticed that each and every one of these ladies left a $5 bill underneath her plate. And I thought, I'm onto something here. So I took the money, I put it in my pocket, I kept my mouth shut, I went back home. School went by. Friday afternoon, the school bus dropped me off in front of my parents' house.
How many ladies we talking? How much did you make on your first day?
I did well. I was like $25, right? So I ran in the house, and I said, Mom, take me to my grandmother's for the weekend. And this went on for several weeks, and then my mom discovered a stack of $5 bills in my sock drawer. And as any mother out there would be, she was rather alarmed, and she sat me down, and she demanded to know where a 10-year-old kid had all this money. And I had to fess up I was running a makeshift restaurant on my grandmother's house. So
Nice.
she ended the business immediately. She said I was fleecing these old ladies out of their Social Security checks. So that was the end of that.
Okay, but when your grandmother found out, were you serving pancakes every weekend, or were you
Every
at least
weekend,
every
Sunday? My grandmother was in on the deal. She didn't say anything to my parents. I didn't cut my sisters in on the action. They didn't know what was going on. Like it was just kind of a deal between me and my grandmother. But that was kind of when I started, and then that really gave me the bug to become an entrepreneur.
Okay, so then that's how it started. It wasn't really, it was kind of by accident then.
It was by accident, yeah. And I will say the one thing, and Daymond brought up a really good point. Growing up, when I look back on my career, the best thing that my parents did for me was they gave me permission to fail. It was okay to make mistakes. It was okay to have failures. But in my house, it was never okay not to try. And I think what Daymond said was right. You have to let kids get out there. You have to let them experience it, and you can't tell them no. Right. And that was with my mom. She then encouraged me to start other businesses as a child.
Right. Daymond, I want to go back to you.
Yeah. Oh, this is a better mic. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's much better. So, okay, so you handed out flyers at the mall. You were 10 years old. But it didn't stop there. In high school, you actually worked full-time and went to school at the same time? How is that possible?
Well, high school had a program called the co-op program in New York where you can go to school 1 week and then you can get a job and work every other week. So I got credit for that. Now I'm dyslexic. I didn't know I was dyslexic till I was probably about 27 years old. But now I know what the cheat was because I just did not want to go to school. I didn't do really well with anything to do with reading social studies, but I was really good in math and science and things of that nature. So really, that's why I went to school. I took up that program, went to work.
Right. Where do you find that drive that clearly you've had ever since a young age?
I think what entrepreneurs do, and I want to make sure I'm clear on this, you could be entrepreneurial thinking working in a big system, right? But I think what entrepreneurs do, they're fascinated by solving a problem, and it's like a puzzle, right? And they figure that, and they don't take no for an answer. They figure, well, somebody's done this before in other ways. Why can't I do it? There is a hack or a way to figure this out. So it's, especially if you're doing something you love. If you're only doing it purely because you think it's worth money, you normally don't, you're not really excited with it. Now, if you are
dealing with financial instruments, and it's the instrument itself and figuring it out on how to make money. That's a different story, right? But I'm talking about if everybody that I have known that have done things purely for money ended up whether in the wrong place, because of it, or when they got the rewards and the riches, they didn't know what to do. They just kind of, there was no satisfaction, to it. That's hence why you look at athletes and lotto winners are normally 65% of them are bankrupt 3 years after leaving the league or winning the lotto, right? Because money's just a tool, but it's about having a passion and drive and understanding how that tool works.
Right. Melissa Conyears-Ervin said something when she was introducing. It's like you need to know how to get to where you want to get from the folks who've done it. Both of you guys have done it. Bill, how did you get to where you are today?
I think there was a lot of mistakes along the way, and I think for me, when I was in college, I started a boat cleaning business to work my way through college in Belmont Harbor here, and my parents were both school teachers, right? So when I was a kid growing up, the adults that were in our family home were other educators, right? Other school teachers. I never met entrepreneurs, and I started this boat cleaning business here in Belmont Harbor, and I'll never forget. I got to meet the owners of these big boats, right? 50, 60-foot boats.
And you were in college at this point.
I was in college. I was at Loyola University right down here, and I was working my way through school, and I got to meet these people who had these big boats, and I realized they weren't any different than me. And much like Daymond, I left that summer of washing boats, and I adopted the mindset, why not me? And I'll never forget, there was one of my clients, he owned a big insurance company, and he had this 60-foot boat, and I thought, if this guy can do it, I sure as heck can do it. And that really gave me the confidence to go out. And when I got out of college, I started a company called Cigars Around the World. And that was it. There was no going back. I knew that I was never going to work for anyone ever again.
Yeah.
And that was it for me.
I'm reminded of that expression, you can't be what you can't see. So the fact that you were able to see someone and think, well, why not me? Daymond, what would you say to someone who may look at that and think, like you said earlier, people tend to put limitations on you, whether it comes from a good place or a bad place. What do you say to somebody in this audience who sees it but still doubts and puts limitations on themselves?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is what people think is they need money to make money. And
Say that again. Did y'all hear that?
Yeah, people think they need money to make money, but no, you don't. You really don't, right? And how am I saying that? Because didn't I just show you the stats on the lotto winners? Well, if you reverse those stats, I don't know what's going on with the mic here. If you reverse those stats, 65% of Forbes wealthiest people. Yeah, I need another mic over here. Yeah, so if you reverse that, if you reverse that stat, 65% of Forbes most wealthiest people are self-made men and women. That means they came from nothing, right? And if money was just something that will always be something that a tool that you need, well, and you'll be successful, then why didn't the Fords and the Carnegies and the Mellons acquire any of these Facebooks, Instagrams, and all that type of stuff, right? Because the first generation makes it, the second enjoys it, the third destroys it. So it's really that you can do it. And look at me. I'm not, so this is actually a pretty sad fact. But name another African American on a major network that has nothing to do with music, sports, or politics. And there's many of us. There's Madam Treasurer, right? Who controls a lot of money, right? But we don't see that like you're saying. We don't see. So you get intimidated saying, wait a minute, I need to be a great athlete. I need to be a great singer. I need to be, this other stuff. But I got to see it. When I was in Hollis, Queens, crack had devastated Hollis, Queens. Like the movie Belly was made about my friends, and there's one on now, Supreme Team. A lot of stuff was happening. But at the same time, simultaneously, I don't know why the small square 5 miles of Hollis, Queens was Run DMC, LL Cool J, Salt and Pepper, Tribe Called Quest, Ja Rule, 50 Cent, Lost Boys, and Onyx and Intro, and they all lived there. And I used to see them, and I was like, they're doing something they love, and they're making a lot of money. I got to do something I love, and money will come, but I got to do something I love first, and I got to take affordable steps to do it. Too many people think you have to build this massive machine. You do not have to build a massive machine. Money often highlights people's weaknesses. If you have an inferior product and you buy more, you just have more inferior product. If you have a commercial or you have social media and it's not converting, well, buying more of it, it's not going to convert.
Right.
Right? So a lot of people use money and they think it often highlights your weaknesses. You need money when you can't keep up with inventory. You need equipment because you can't keep up with inventory. Or you need software or things like that because you cannot keep up with the demand. That's when you need money. And that's when you can go to one of these banks and you can factor it or do something like that and show them how you can collateralize or you have enough proof that they can secure their money or their investment in you.
Right. So
I
go
want
ahead,
to
Bill.
just say one thing because you touched on a really good point. You know, and when you're out there, there's always going to be people who are going to tell you you can't do it. There's always going to be those people who feel the need to pull you down in order to build themselves up, right? And that's how those people think they're going to get ahead. And those people are jealous, they're envious, they wish they had your drive, your ambition, your vision, your passion for life. And I'll never forget, when I was in the 6th grade, my parents went in for a parent-teacher conference, and I was a horrible student, right? Bottom of my class. The teacher told my mom and dad that they should encourage me to take an interest in the trades because I would never make it to college and I would never make it in the white-collar world, right? Thank God my parents didn't listen to her, and they encouraged that. But like Daymond said, you don't need a lot of money. You need a great idea, and you need to work your tail off and find creative ways to get your message out. And when I was 24 years old, I started a business in a studio apartment down here in Chicago, in a 400 square foot studio apartment called Cigars Around the World. It was the first ever Cigar of the Month Club. And I didn't have any money. I had $8,000 and my partner had $8,000, and that was it. And we started this thing, and I wrote letters to every single morning radio show here in Chicago. And I said, hey, you know, can you please take a closer look at my idea? I'm a 24-year-old kid. I want to get this thing going. And the #1 morning radio show in 1994, he had me on the air. It was the Jonathan Brandmeier morning radio show. And he had me on the air, and he started talking about cigars around the world. He had me on for 20 minutes, telling his listeners how he's been a member of this Cigar of the Month Club for years, going on and on. I went back to the apartment. Every phone in that little apartment was ringing. We did over $100,000 in sales from that one radio interview, and it cost me nothing. So I just wanted to follow up on your point, David.
Yeah, and I know you can relate to that too, because I want to talk about, we're going to get to The Shark and The Apprentice and your experiences that and how you got there. But we got to go back to FUBU and how that was born.
Yeah.
And I want the detailed story because I was reading about it, but I want to hear about it from you, how your mother mortgaged her home and then you took out another mortgage and then how it became $1 billion business.
Yeah, so this is quite a long story, and I'm
maybe
gonna try
abbreviate
I'm gonna try to abbreviate it really quick.
But no, we do want to. That's why we're here, right? Yeah. We want to know. We want to know the secrets.
Yeah, absolutely. So, bottom line was that I saw that you know, other companies weren't valuing our market. And I'll be very honest. I couldn't rap, sing, or dance, but I wanted to get onto the video sets because I wanted to holler at the girls and eat the free food. And look at artists that I really loved perform. But, you know, so I made a couple of hats. They looked just like a ski cap without the ball on top, a string on top of it, like a shoestring. In 1989, Good Friday, I stood outside of a mall, the same mall I was handing out flyers for earlier.
Well, what's the name of this mall? This mall to be named after you
the
now.
Coliseum Mall, right, in Jamaica, Queens. And I stood there, and in 1 hour, I sold $800 worth of hats. And I realized at that moment that it was my ability to sell and show value to the customer. Either it matched their sneakers, either it kept their head warm, either it was the hat that looked like the one in the De La Soul video, so they were more fashionable. And then I remember that it was just my ability to sell these things, right?
So was it the product or your ability to sell?
It was my ability to sell. Remember, there's nothing new in this world. The #1 invested product in Shark Tank history is Bombas socks. It's socks. The the best selling, and they're going to do $1 billion, right? The #2 best selling product in Shark Tank history is a sponge called the Scrub Daddy with a smile on the face. You know, there's nothing new in this world, right? There may be a new form of delivery. You may make it lighter, faster, stronger, But Airbnb is still a timeshare. Uber is it's a limousine service, and Facebook is just a nasty chain letter. It's all the same stuff, right? So it's your ability to sell, right, and show value to a customer. So I closed Fubu out, but check this out. I closed Fubu down 3 times from 89 to 92 because I ran out of money. But I only ran out of $500, $1,000, and I brought it back because people started saying, I went to the flea market to look for you. I went here. You know what? Everybody loves this. And the business called me back. I didn't get a major deal I got a deal with Samsung's textile division to manufacture and distribute my clothes. I opened up in 89. I didn't get that deal till 97.
Well, you have a similar story to Bill, though, about, how smart you were to say, well, you know what, let me go to the #1 radio station in town and then spread the word that way. You did the same thing, right, by wanting LL Cool J to...
I went to every video set, so I had 10 T-shirts, all I had the money was for 10 T-shirts, and I took those same 10 T-shirts and I went to every video set, and every video set I didn't get kicked off of, I put them on a rapper or a dancer, and then I would take it back. And I did that for 2 years.
Oh, well, you would take the hat back?
I took the T-shirts back, and after about 6 months, they give them back because I didn't have money to dry clean them, so they wore them for half an hour, and they were like, God damn, and they gave it back. So, and that's what happened. I slowly built the company. So a lot of people want to say, listen, I'm distributing everywhere. No, I focus on 8 stores in New York City, just 8. I could have sold to other places, but why did I focus on 8 stores? Because of what we call proof of concept. What I did was I would put a whole bunch of colored shirts in there because, as a designer, you want everybody to see all the colors. I started to realize 60% of sales in fashion are black and another 20% are white. So I started putting 3 colors in, black, red, and white. I had 10 logos. I went down to my 2 logos that was selling the best. And at that time, everybody was wearing baggy clothes. So I only sold XXX. Even though it was small or an extra small, I would just cut the tag out and put a XXX in it, and the kid would feel good about himself. So now all of a sudden, I'm increasing my sales in those stores instead of trying to find new stores. And then when my backers came around, they called the store, and those 8 stores said, it's moving quicker than Nike and Tommy Hilfiger combined. And that's how I got a big deal, by just focusing on this small little group. So I'm gonna close that out because I want to make sure I hear. I'm a big fan of Bill and his wife and how they've established, because you have to think about how they were on TV and they pivoted to be excellent business people, and a lot of people don't do that. And I want to basically share that that's how I got my deal. By focusing on very small collective groups. If you went on Shark Tank, somebody would say, if I sold $50 worth of stuff, can I get $1 million deal on Shark Tank? If you're selling those little spinners and you opened up your trunk and you told me that you sold 10 spinners for $5 in 3 minutes, you got $1 million deal. But if you did $5 million in business over 20 years and you still have inventory, I'm out. So it's really about execution.
And Bill and his beautiful wife, Juliana Rancic, have definitely executed. So after the cigar business, what was next for you?
Well, I had the cigar business for about 8 years, and I sold that company in 2001, and I started developing real estate. And then I got an opportunity to be on this TV show.
Some little TV show
called The Apprentice, and it was in 2003, and they had 250,000 people apply. They narrowed it down, then they flew the final 50 to California and put us through all these tests, different, how it works, Daymond. And I was actually the alternate chosen. So there were 16 contestants on the show. I was the 17th one. Wow. So if someone backed out or, couldn't make it, I was the guy that got called up from the bullpen. And sure enough, someone fell through and they asked me if I'd be on. And they said, you got 2 weeks to be in New York City and do it. And I didn't have time to think about it. And I said, okay. And I went to New York City and started filming this business competition show.
What was it like going through that process and realizing that, okay, I'm taking this is a long shot here, 250 people auditioned for this. What were you thinking?
I wasn't. A friend of mine that I grew up with, my friend Ileana Romero, her mom was a talent agent in Chicago for children. And at the time they had fax machines, right? And she called me up one day, my friend Ileana's mom, and she said, her name was Myrna, she just passed away, God rest her soul. And she said, there's a new show, and they're looking for young entrepreneurs, and I made you an appointment on Thursday at 3 o'clock, you better be there.
That's
and
it.
she was the kind of lady you don't want to say no to. And I went to this meeting, and that was kind of the start. I would have never known about it if it wasn't for her.
Wow.
You know what's fascinating? The same producer, Mark Burnett, that produced The Apprentice, produced Shark Tank. Mark Burnett is the most successful reality producer in the world, and he was like a ranger type of guy in the British Army. He came over here and sold T-shirts on Venice Beach, just hand to hand, and now he has Survivor, Contender, Apprentice, Shark Tank, Smarter Than the Fifth Grade, all these shows, and he started as an entrepreneur as well.
Exactly. And you know, the theme that I'm hearing here, it all starts with an idea.
But I think it starts with getting good information. And I do want to just say thank you to Madam Treasurer for putting an event like this on in this great city.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. Absolutely.
Because you got to be inspired. You got to know that you can do it. You got to hear from people that didn't come from a trust fund or didn't go to an Ivy League school.
Yeah.
And that's so important because you have to be able to dream. And if you can't dream, like Val said, you can't do it. And for me, I think that's so important. And I think, this is a city that is an amazing city with amazing people. And I think our best days are in front of us here. And it's because we're doing things like this in Chicago.
Absolutely. Give it up for Madam Treasurer again.
Yeah.
Bill, so you're the alternate, you get called up. What was the experience like for you, and how did it change your life?
It was surreal. I mean, we were getting 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night, no days off. It was each 4 days we'd have a new business challenge that we'd have to go through, and I'm watching these good people get eliminated week after week after week, and then before I knew it, it was me and one other guy. He was a brilliant guy. And then it was live. It was a live finale, and there were 28 million people tuning in. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was like that in the Super Bowl, and I got hired, and my life changed from that point on. And I knew that if this lasted 6 months or a year, I was going to take advantage of this opportunity, and I knew that it wasn't going to last. And I was very grateful, and I just said, I'm going to do good things. God gave me a gift here. And I'm gonna be a good steward with this gift. And here I am almost 20 years later, and I never thought it was going to go this far. And I was able to do other opportunities as a result of it. But I think when you make it big, you got to be responsible, and you got to pay it forward and help others along the way. And I think that's really an important part of this journey. And I know Daymond does amazing work as well, and really makes a difference in a lot of people's lives.
Absolutely. Was it as intense as what we saw as viewers watching it behind the scenes?
It was the first season, so it was. And as Daymond will tell you, Mark Burnett is kind of a purist. He doesn't want anything to be manipulated. The cameras just roll, literally 24/7. At least that's how it was, 20 years ago. And literally midway through, people wanted to get fired because they were so tired, right? Like they purposely would leave the lights on so you couldn't sleep. They want a little bit of the drama. So they want you sleep deprived. They want that, the battling, which I never really participated in, but that's all part of the TV, magic that they make, where it was very grueling and it was very tough. But I had that entrepreneurial experience, and I think that's what separated me from a lot of these people who were on that show who had these incredible pedigrees. They went to these beautiful schools with MBAs and whatever else they had, and it was that entrepreneurial spirit that helped me. And I think the entrepreneur is someone who jumps out of the airplane and figures out how to open up the parachute on the way down, right? And that was what I did.
Yeah. And you've been, like you said, 20 years. You've been able to have lasting power. What do you credit to that?
Just making right decisions. I think being nice and being kind and appreciating what you have,
that goes a long
way. Very
way.
appreciative.
I think you're probably leaving something else out. What I found most successful entrepreneurs they have a healthy paranoia as well.
100%.
You're always knowing that somebody can replace you. You're always knowing you have to get up earlier than somebody else and go to sleep after, and that if you don't watch your back, the younger version of you is ready to eat your lunch.
Well, I always say, I'm never going to be the smartest guy in the room, but I'm always going to be willing to work the hardest.
That's right.
And no one's going to outwork me. I can promise you that. Even at this age, I'm ready to go. Let's go.
Let's go.
I'm ready. So
you don't have to get ready because you stay ready. That's what I tell my kids. Don't get ready, stay ready, right? Daymond, Shark Tank. How many of y'all big fans of Shark Tank?
Yeah. I'm going to FaceTime my son here in a minute.
Hey,
Give us the real tea. What's it like?
Barbara doesn't take her medicine. That's it. Barbara does not take her medicine. On average, pitch is an hour long. We have 16 cameras shooting it. That's 16 hours of footage for you to see 8 minutes.
Wow.
It takes us 6 to 8 months to close the deals. We close about 80% of the deals now. The first earlier years, we closed less deals because the sharks were growing and learning how to structure these businesses. The businesses themselves were not the best because nobody really knew what Shark Tank was. It was very hard for us to explain it. And that's the beauty of the show. It's as real as it gets. There's no lines, there's no fake stuff, nothing of that.
Is it a take it or leave it deal? Because obviously you guys are in control, but like, so if we make a deal on TV, then we go negotiate the deal backstage. This is it, right? Like you take it or leave it.
It all depends. Obviously, I always say the only thing more important than the number is the person. And if I feel I can work with you, at the end of the day, bottom line is I gotta like you, you gotta like me. That's it. When you're investing in a company or when you're going into business with a family member or you are working at a company, the reality is we're still humans. And for me to make money, and anybody here to make money, I'm a very fortunate person in my life, but if I want to make money and I don't want to speak to the person, well, I just send my money over the market. I lose or I win. But they don't ask me how to fix an Apple computer, a Tesla, nothing, right? Or build an infrastructure. So if I'm going to sit and talk to you, it's really about people. It always will be about people. And even if you're working in a system, a lot of people think that you can't be entrepreneurial working in a system. I think it's harder working in a big corporation to be an entrepreneur. We can fire our clients. You got to sit there right next to a sensitive ass person, all day, right? And try to figure it out. So it really is about figuring it out and liking people. That's the key. But I want to give people a couple of takeaways because, of course, we want to be financially stout here. Now, first of all, mentorship is a key, right? You got to get somebody who's a mentor. My mentor, everybody knows him. He's George Daniels, right here. Stand up, George. Everybody knows George.
Uncle George.
Of course, Uncle George. Absolutely. George has mentored me ever since we first started FUBU, and he came around and, he's mentored me. But, this is supported, and Madam Treasurer got a lot of banks to support here. How many people believe that if you don't have any money, you should not walk into the bank and talk to the bank, the private bankers in there? Raise your hand if you don't think, because I know it's intimidating.
I was going to say it's scary for a lot of people.
It is intimidating. But guess what? The reason why the banks are in the community, those bankers are there, is because they want, and by the way, they've heard all the problems you've had. They've heard it 100 times come through the door. But they want to make sure that they give you enough knowledge so that when you come in and you make secure deposits, you grow to become a Bill, a Daymond, John. They want to get you early, and they want to educate you. I've learned more I know this is sponsored by BMO. I happen to be signed to Chase, but I've learned more, honestly, I swear to you, in the last 5 years from bankers than I've learned in 30 years because now I had money and I had invested, but I never talked to just bankers. I have investment bankers, different. But as I was starting to be on the road with them, I started to realize they know so much. They'll tell you, well, you're setting up a minority company. Well, if you have your partners are more than this amount, well, you're going to have to give up more documents. So make sure your partners are only this amount, right? They're going to share with you, this is really business expenses that you're doing. And the COVID relief fund, you can write off 100% of your business meals up until the rest of this year. 100% of it. But they'll tell you if you're in a hotel and you decide, let me put my hotel key on my food, charges for my room, that's a hotel charge. That's not a restaurant charge. Just take your credit card out and put it in the restaurant. Those little things right there, and they can give you 24 of those things, will save you money. Most of the billionaires I know, what they do is they write around with a little book, because you know what they do? I go, what are you writing in this book? They go, I'm writing how to legally save taxes. Why? I could start a new business, put $100 million into it, and maybe it'll work. Or the $400 million I'm going to spend on taxes, can I get it down to $200 million? I've already made the money already. So these are the things you need to understand about these bankers back here. Your problem is not unique. They heard it 100 times from 100 different people that week. And that's why Madam Treasurer brought these people here. She could have brought anybody here. Anybody would love to talk to Chicago. It's really critical. So remember, OPM doesn't have to be other people's money. With the bankers, it's other people's mind power. With manufacturing, other people's manufacturing, other people's marketing. If you're going to social media right now, you know what you do? Go to any place, Main Street, you will see half the stores are closed. Why? Because a lot of those people aren't good with social media, but they have inventory. Go over there and say, hey, give me 50% of what I sell online. They're like, I got a whole bunch of inventory in the back. No problem. Give me 25% of what I sell online. They already got the inventory. You're using their cash. You're using your network. There's so many different ways to make money.
And I think Daymond's right, and I want to add to that. Knowledge is power, right? And I remember when I was a young man, my dad gave me this book, and I don't want to promote other books. Daymond and I are both authors up here, but there was a book called The Millionaire Next Door, written by a professor, William Danko. And that book changed my life. And I realized, and this is something my dad always would say to me, it's not how much you make, it's how much you save.
Yep, that's right.
And this book will tell you, just because the guy next door to you has this brand new car, and all, it doesn't matter. You don't want to keep up with him. I never bought new cars, right? I never went and bought a new. You got to read this book, and I'm telling you, it's going to help you understand money, respect money, right? And we talk about being an entrepreneur, you have to take risk, but risk has to be managed and converted into success. And I think the one thing that holds most people back, it comes down to one word. And why some people are successful and others are not,
Fear.
it comes down to fear.
I knew
It is.
And when we're born into this world, we're only born with two natural fears, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. And every other fear we have is learned. And so many people are afraid they're going to fail. They're afraid they're going to make a mistake. They're afraid what their friends or their coworkers are going to say that they never even. And that, to me, is the biggest mistake of all.
And that's a typical point, right? Because like I used to not to buy new cars, but a lot of you don't know what good debt is and bad debt. Because if you grew up like us, it was pay all your bills. Right? And then it was keep your money under the bed because you can't trust the banks. Well, cash is trash. It's a depreciating asset.
Especially now.
Right? Especially now, right? If you put $100,000 in the ground in 1975 and one wrought a stone, not diamond crusted, Mickey Mouse head, but if you put a diamond worth $100,000 in the ground in 1975, well, you pull it out, the $100,000 barely gets you a mid-sized Benz. But you pull out that stone, it'll be worth about $1.7 million, right? So you have to understand that, and there's good debt and bad debt. Instead of buying a new car, buy a small little apartment, because good debt is when somebody else pays your debt for you, meaning your mortgage on that little apartment is $1,500 and you rent it out for $2,000. Somebody's paying your debt for you.
Okay.
And when you're doing what that debt is, that apartment is increasing, you can then pull more money out of it and buy another one. And buy another one.
You can depreciate
and buy
the
another
asset.
one.
So you're talking about investment property.
I'm talking about investment property, but there is good debt and bad debt. It doesn't matter if somebody else is paying your bills. If you want to buy a car and you give it to somebody else, a truck, and you give it to somebody else to operate Uber with it, well, then they're going to pay for the truck.
Okay. A lot of folks, we all know we're coming out of a pandemic. People's businesses have taken a hit in these last couple of years.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to folks who are already in business, maybe thinking about starting a business coming out of a pandemic? Is there anything that they need to do to pivot?
Well, it depends on where they are. Technology, what COVID did, it was just sped up the inevitable. That's all it did. If you were over leveraged and you were saying, I don't need to understand social media, well, then now your doors are closed. Your same customer is literally right down the block and you don't have a way to get a hold of them, right? You just decided that it wasn't for you, right? And you did not educate yourself. That's generally what happened. I'm oversimplifying it. There are other issues, of course, right? But the first investment you should make in any business is purely an education. That's it, not a dollar. Not a dollar. Or what is your affordable asset? What do you have? When FUBU really got started, after I failed the first 3 times, you know how I got started? I knew what I had. I didn't have any money. I had a phone available to me, and I said I was going to make 50 phone calls a day for 6 months. 50 phone calls a day for 6 months. And if I got past that, I'd turn up to 75, and then So what I do? For the first 2 months, nobody answered the phone. But I would call 10 manufacturers, 10 stores, 10 record labels to see if an artist would wear it. But after about 2 months, you know what people did? I picked up, when I called, they were like, you ain't going nowhere, are you? Nope.
So persistence.
Yeah, or they would say, I didn't think about it, but guess what? I was out at dinner with somebody the other night. I know somebody that I think you should call that can help you out. Okay. What did it cost me? 50 calls a day.
Nothing.
That's it.
Right. But you just said education too. Education costs though. How?
No, ignorance costs more than an education.
Okay.
Right? So 100%.
All right.
Yeah. You see, money will always transfer from the uninformed to the informed. So that's why when you have a lot of money and you think, oh, you know, why don't you handle that? Why don't you handle my marketing? Why don't you handle that? Somebody's gonna go, yeah, I got you. They're selling you something. You got to do it yourself. Because if you don't know how your social media works or manufacturing works or some of this stuff, well, then what if a good social media person comes over? Well, they do really well. They either go, I'm doubling or tripling my price. You're at the mercy of them. What if they steal the keys to the car and go, I'm not giving this to you? What if they suck? You have no idea if they suck because you don't know anything about it.
Right. Okay.
This is your business. And people think it's hard, but I got to tell you what the hardest thing in life is. A mother giving birth and raising a child, right?
How many mamas we got in here?
Right?
That can say an amen to that.
I'll be very honest. I don't care what book you've ever read. It ain't going to tell you how to deal with this child every single day. You're going to figure it out. That's the same exact thing you do with a business.
Right, right. Bill, what advice would you give?
You know, I think we talk a lot about...
Nothing against dads. Sorry, Bill.
You know, I did a lot of studying, and I worked on this show called We Mean Business for the A&E Network, where I went in and tried to help failing businesses. And I put my heart and soul into it. And I did a lot of just analyzing, why are these people failing, right? Because I believe if you want to be successful, you sometimes have to reverse engineer the process. And after these 10 businesses that I worked on, I walked away with 3 reasons why all 10 of these businesses were failing, and I think this is something that can apply to everyone. First and foremost, they were all reactive rather than proactive, right? They would wait for a problem to happen, and then they would put that fire out, and they never understood, but because they liked the drama in their lives, they liked feeling like they let their egos get in the way, and they wanted to feel important and put those fires out. The successful ones are anticipating the problems and coming up with solutions before the problem, the healthy paranoia. Yeah. Secondly, they surround themselves around negative people. And you know, I read a study, I think it was the University of Chicago, and they came out with a study and they said the majority of the people we come into contact with on a daily basis are negative. And even people you may love or may in your life, right? You're never gonna be able to eliminate some of these people from your life, but when you're aware of who they are and what their intentions are, you negate their power. And like I said before, people are gonna pull you down in order to build themselves up. And the third reason why these people all fail is because they do this.
Blame.
They point to their left and they point to the right and they blame everyone and everything around them, right? I hired a bad guy, we had a bad winter, this. The ones who are succeeding, the guys like Daymond, they don't do this, they do this. They point the finger at themselves, and that's how they get ahead in the world.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's powerful, yeah. You're right, though. When I never thought about that, but when I reflect on it, yeah.
Yeah, and you brought up, this is now the second time you brought up healthy paranoia. I think that could be the name of your next book.
The name of my next book?
Yeah, healthy paranoia.
It's Little Daymond Learns to Earn. But I have no problem promoting other books. Like, I tell you the ones that changed my life growing up was Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Those are the books that changed my life. But yeah, it's Little Daymond Learns to Earn. The reason why, what I realize is that this country hasn't normally educated our kids about financial intelligence. And that system is broken for the most part, and people are trying to fix it. But in the 6th grade, when you can go to shop class and learn how to build a birdhouse, that's fine. But there's no finance. There's not talking about what compounding interest is. How do you handle your credit? Why do you pay your taxes? How do you pay your taxes? And what happens is when you are in there, then if you don't have financial intelligence, and then you have the ability at 16 years old, 17 years old to take out $500,000 worth of debt, that's problematic, right? You want to make sure you're taking it out for the right reasons. And they don't teach us that. And for the parents here,
I want you to be concerned about that because think about it. Your kids are going to take care of you 2 times longer than you took care of them in many situations. So financial intelligence is key. And if you want to start today on it, and I know a lot of people hear this stuff and they go and leave, they don't do anything. You know what to do? On your social media platforms, start following financial institutions and or people, accountants. And I'm not saying you have to look at it very hard, but when you're going through your normal feed or whatever you look at, right? Cooking and fun stuff and beauty, you'll start seeing this feed and you'll start checking it out. I don't care what you want to know about. I'm not saying purchase from any of those people, but start seeing feeds on crypto, real estate, flipping houses, investments, stocks, bonds, right? Because you don't have to necessarily start a business. I bought Shopify at $28. It topped out at $1,900 4 years later. That's a stock. But if you know retail doors are closing and everybody's opening a Shopify account, and right now that thing is like 60-70% off, aren't you going to buy it? If you know that electric, you can't keep enough Teslas there, and we're all moving to electric, and Tesla is 60 or 50% off, aren't you going to buy it? You don't have to become an entrepreneur. You just have to have financial intelligence, and it can't be just a tip I gave you. It's got to be something you're excited about. I don't buy anything that if it disappears, the only thing I buy, is if it disappears, it would disrupt my life. So if Facebook and Instagram disappeared and I had to find all my pictures again, my life would be disrupted. If Amazon disappeared and my mother and my wife couldn't buy all of the damn Amazon things, and I'd be able to get out of the house in the morning because there wouldn't be all those boxes. If Uber disappeared, I'd have to catch a yellow cab again. You know how that's going to end up. I don't care.
A Bentley out back. Yeah. Who are you kidding?
No, I'm a New Yorker, man. We are around, but I'm still black.
Yeah.
So. But you gotta really be into this stuff, and I didn't just learn this. By the way, I almost went bankrupt when I was 20. When I first had my first $20 million, I didn't know how money worked, and I thought it was all the accountants and everybody else. And I made stupid decisions, not lavish things. I just didn't know how money worked. Planes crashed into the buildings. I put my money in when it was high. As soon as those planes crashed in the building, the market went down. I said, this is going to go to zero. I pulled it back out. It went right back to where it was 6 months later. Right? I didn't realize taxes. I bought a house. Oh, let me pay for the whole thing, right? Not realizing about the land tax and I got an interior decorator. I blew all that money and then I stopped and I said, wait a minute, I'm going to end up like the rest of these athletes. And I started to study it.
Yeah. One thing I totally agree with Daymond, and one thing I do with my son is every morning. He comes in, wakes, gets up ready for school. We watch CNBC in the morning. He calls it the Money Show. Yeah. We watch Squawk Box. Yeah. And my son now knows he likes Roblox, so he's buying Roblox stock. I gave him, $100 to buy Roblox stock, but he's vested in it. And he now we listen to it in the car. We watch it in the morning. He knows a lot about money and finances, and he just turned 10 years old. So, just how are you allocating your time? And I go back to my dad. Make wise use of your spare time. Right, I hear his voice in my head, and I do the same thing with my son. We make wise use of our spare time, and in the morning he comes in. I'm having a coffee. We're watching, Joe Kernan and Becky Quick and the whole gang on Squawk Box, and it's just for him. He's going to have a much different life than I had because he is going to have that knowledge at such a young age.
Right, and Bill, I think that's such an important point because. Like you said, did our parents talk to us about financial literacy?
No.
When we were 10 years old? No. And I think that's the lesson that a lot of parents in here talk about. You guys have given us so much takeaway.
We didn't have any money. Like, we would have to wait to payday, right?
Yeah.
Like,
they didn't know.
I remember my dad saying, let's wait till payday and let's see if we can get you a new pair of sneakers, right? I mean, that was it.
David, you were going to say something?
No, I was just saying a lot of our parents didn't know. They were so busy just trying to keep us off the streets. They didn't know, and you can't blame them, But now a lot of information is out there, and you're just going to slowly learn it. Don't feel intimidated by it.
Right.
Anything you want to learn, you can find on the internet. I'll be honest with you.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, you can learn anything you want on the internet, and it doesn't cost you a dime.
You know what? My 81-year-old mother, who lives right down the street, who's been an educator her entire life, still tutors and preps kids for the ACT and the SAT, says there's no excuse anymore because just what you said. If you want to know it, Google it.
That's right.
Look it up on the internet.
So my son goes to the school and they're teaching, this is their principle. You're gonna learn to learn. right? They teach you how to learn. He has a love of learning, and they're not called teachers, they're called guides. They'll point you in the right direction, but you're going to get that information. They're not going to show you how to do this math problem. You're going to go online, you're going to figure out how to do it yourself.
Wow.
And I think that is a gift that we're giving our son, that if he wants to do anything he wants in this world, he's going to learn. And if you know how to learn, you can do anything you want to do.
And you don't have to be smart because, like, I'm dyslexic, right? But how many people here are dyslexic? Anybody? Okay, a good portion. 8 of the 12 sharks are dyslexic. I think they say 42% of entrepreneurs are dyslexic. 7 presidents were dyslexic. Einstein was dyslexic. So it's how you process information and have common sense and find your way to process the information.
Absolutely. Y'all, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's the dyslexic people, it's some of these people on the spectrum. Those are the people who change the world, right? Because they're forced to see things a little bit differently. They're forced to do things a little bit differently. So just because you don't fit into that mold, if you look at people who've changed the world, Elon Musk, he's autistic, right? He's on the autism spectrum, right? You look at some of the great minds of this world, and they're not neurotypical, right? They've had issues in their life, and it made them see things differently, and thank God for those people, right? Because we wouldn't have what we have today without them.
Are you guys having a good time? I think we done talked to 45 minutes plus. Mary, how we doing? We got to move on to are we good? Okay, well, you know what? Let's, before we let you guys go, first of all, thank you so much for dropping all the gems that you dropped today.
No, thank you.
And giving folks real practical takeaways. So I want to give you each a second, minute or two, to kind of just wrap up, just to tie a bow around what you want to leave folks here. We got a lot of entrepreneurs here in Chicago and folks who have aspirations to do something, maybe fear is holding them back. What would you say as you're parting us about building wealth for today and tomorrow?
Well, first of all, mentally, you really have to know you can do it, right? And it may take a while. It will take a while, excuse me, all right? But you're still going to be here, God willing, right? And you have to start making those small investments. But the most important thing is to do something you're really excited about, right? Anything that you can consume, you can sell, right? Anything you buy, you can sell. But I believe that the 3 pillars to success are very critical. The first pillar to success is knowing your why. What do you want to get? Not what your parents told you success looks like. You're afraid of how the community looks at you. Like, you're the only one that really knows what you want. And you got to drill down deep on that. There's too many people who live their lives for other people. And I understand to serve. And being an entrepreneur, you are vulnerable and you serve. I get that. But you really have to drill down on your why. How many people I've met, on Bill or you who met, that they went to school, they had this great kind of career or this great degree, but they were really doing what their parents believed was the right thing to do, and now they're doing something better or greater, and it has nothing to do with what they went to school with. Once you understand that critical aspect of what you want to be and what you want to accomplish, then you got to set goals to get that done, right? You have to set goals. Listen, I'm going to read 2 books a year or a month, or I'm going to follow these Instagram accounts. I'm going to start the schooling. I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to talk to 3 friends and try to get some money together.
I'm going to go to my bank and talk to my banker.
I'm going to go to my bank right in the back and talk to my banker. And then the last but not least is what we keep saying. You've got to keep educating yourself. But the critical aspect is if your why is wrong, your goals are going to be wrong, and then the education is going to be wrong. And that's when Bill is saying, like, you're going to start pointing at other people. That this really is up to you. It's straight up. So if you don't want to open a business, then understand the stock market. If you don't want to understand the stock market, do something else. I have no idea how, but this got to be yours. You can't just be like, well, Bill and Daymond told me to open a business. We didn't tell you that. We didn't tell you that, right? So you got to figure these things out, but it's really up to you. It's not up to anybody else. I can't tell you how many times when I was coming up, people were like, man, that's not going to work, and this and that. I was like, aren't you a crackhead?
Right.
So, stop talking to me. And give me back my VCR.
Bill, what would you say?
I certainly agree with Daymond, but,
About crackheads?
No. God, no. No, not going there.
And I'm not trying to make fun of people who have substance abuse, but what I'm saying is I met a lot of people who did not have that and actually were very negative people. As you said, they were very, very negative.
So I think, for me, I guess my 3 pillars, when I look back on, why I was able to achieve a certain level of success, I think there were 3 reasons why. One is, growing up, I understood the term practical execution. And essentially what that means is actions speak louder than words, right? And a lot of people are going to talk a hell of a game. I'm going to write this book, I'm going to climb this mountain, I'm going to make this much money. But it's, as Daymond knows, it's very few, right? It's 1-2% that put their head down, they keep their mouth shut, and they let their actions speak for them, right? Those are the people that get ahead. Secondly, don't be afraid to pivot, right? I think you have to be agile, you have to adjust, you have to be willing to make changes, otherwise you become extinct, right? And that's one of the ways we got through COVID. We're in the restaurant business. We used agility. We found creative ways to do it. So it's about understanding practical execution. It's about being agile. And lastly, it's about risk. But it's about, like I said, understanding that risk, managing that risk, and converting that risk into success. And for me, those have kind of been the 3 mantras that I've lived by. And I hope that helps everyone in the audience.
Let's give a big old round of applause, Bill Rancic, Daymond John.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys both.
Thanks, Val. And thank you, Madam Secretary.
Yes.
Treasurer.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
For being here today. If y'all didn't write this down, the 3 pillars here, you know your why, get your goals together, do that education, and of course, practical execution. Don't be afraid to pivot and understand your risk. You guys have been wonderful today. Thank you so much for sitting down for our fireside chat. It's been my pleasure to be here with you guys. Everybody have a great day. And again, salute to Madam Treasurer for putting this event on, the 2nd annual event. Have a great Saturday and a great rest of the day here.
The City Treasurer of Chicago thanks all of our sponsors and all of our community partners, exhibitors, and guest speakers for their generous support and participation in building wealth today for tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for tuning in to Money Mondays with Melissa. We hope you enjoyed today's session and found value in the topic of discussion. Follow Chicago City Treasurer on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn to stay on top of all upcoming events. Remember, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the Chicago Treasurer's Office at 312-744-3356 or visit www.chicagocitytreasurer.com. We'll see you next time for Money Mondays with Melissa.